Hi everyone, today we are going to build off of the strategies that we looked at yesterday. So yesterday's assignment asked you to identify some strategies that we're seeing authors do in their argument. I collected everything that students submitted from across all my classes and came with one big list. So we're going to take this list and see if we can apply it to some articles. So today our goal is going to be kind of similar, that we're trying to identify the strategies. One piece we'll add to it is giving some thoughts on those strategies and then deciding overall if we think that this author made a good argument. So this is a big list. I would keep it up in front of you as you're working or write it down somewhere so you have it. You don't need to use all of them. You might pick 5 that are your favorite, or some articles or arguments are going to have more than others, so you might have to narrow it down. And if there's any other ones you're thinking of, let me know and we can add it to the list. But I started with the main ones that everyone's doing. Identify the argument, give reasons, address the opposition. I'll read through the rest of the list and kind of comment on each. Varying the length of the paragraphs. This is going to happen naturally. Every paragraph isn't going to be 7 sentences. So if you're commenting on this, make sure that it feels purposeful. A paragraph with 5 sentences versus 6 sentences might have just ended up that way. Something more on the extreme ends, if you have like a 12-sentence paragraph or a 1 or a 2-sentence paragraph, that's where I'd give some thought to it. Sentence length, I wrote here, it writes short, emphatic sentences. And a lot of times those short sentences are like, we should stop and think about this idea. You can also look at the opposite, where it's like really long run-on sentences for a purpose. So that's another thing to look at. And as I'm going through these, you'll notice a lot of these are things that we covered in narrative writing. That's because all writing kind of does similar things. With argument, we weren't necessarily doing some of these because we were practicing that standardized 5-paragraph format, but now we're going to see some of those other formats. Isolating words and sentences, where I take a single word or a single sentence and I put it out on its own, kind of making a 1-sentence paragraph. One thing is kind of attacking the opposition, so putting a negative spin on what their view is or what their side is. This is not always a great way to write, but it does happen, so we'll acknowledge it when we see it in the writing we address. Making comparisons, you might take something from your argument and compare it to something else to help people understand. Punctuation, same thing. If there's a period, there's not really much to say about it, but if they're using exclamation points, dashes, colons, question marks, multiple commas in a sentence, that's where you might want to stop and say something. But I wouldn't annotate it unless you actually have a thought and you're like, oh, this has a purpose, or this is why I'm thinking this. Telling a story, I know that anecdotes, and I'll also bring in asking questions with this, anecdotes, and for the hook strategies, asking a question, telling an anecdote were part of it. You'll see that these come out in kind of longer, more robust ways in some of the arguments we look at. Some people will take 4 or 5 paragraphs to tell a story because it's really important to bring that person into the argument. So that's something you may want to look at. Repetition, using a word, a phrase, an idea over and over again. The language, so we kind of write in a very formal way that, again, won't always happen in these. So using casual language or sarcasm is definitely a strategy authors will use. Showing excitement, I know we have exclamation points, but just kind of identifying where that excitement is, why it's there, can be part of it. The last 2 will often come towards the end. Whatever the thing they're arguing about is, their side, they may offer possible solutions or make a call to action, say like, you need to get out and do this thing. So those are parts of arguments as well. So we have a really wide list. When you jump into today's assignment, you'll use some of these. You won't use all of them. You can repeat ones. You can find a couple that really stand out to you, or you can kind of spread out and see how many different ones you can find in there. So what we're actually going to do for today's assignment is there are a handful of argument articles that are posted to our course page. You're going to choose one, so we're going to have kind of a tight list to choose from today. We'll expand that as we go forward. You're going to choose whichever one of those seems the most interesting to you, and you're going to go through and annotate it. I'll show you how to annotate in a minute, but I'm going to be asking you to do 10 different annotations. You're going to identify 10 strategies. Again, you can do that in any mix you want. You can have 3 of one strategy, 2 of another, and then 5 different unique ones. I would say try to vary it a little bit. Don't do all 10 examples of periods. That's not really going to give much thought on what's going on in there. The goal will be that for number 2 as well, spread it out. Don't find 10 in the first 2 paragraphs, because I'm also going to be asking you to comment on the article overall. So part of this work, I'll be saying that you did it throughout. And then at the end of the article, it's a Microsoft Word document, so you'll be able to do whatever you need to it and save it when you're done. Give us a 1-paragraph response explaining whether or not you thought they made a good argument and explain this by talking about the strategy. So like if they use repetition really well, or they address the other side really well, or the opposite if you think they didn't do those things. And then make sure that you're referencing those strategies when you do that paragraph. And then finally, you'll have to save it and then upload that article to today's assignment. So those are all the steps. The one I want to spend some time demonstrating for you a little bit is just the idea of annotating if you haven't done this on a Microsoft Word document before. So first is what should be in that annotation. You're going to do two things. You're going to identify the strategy. So you're going to say, I'm looking at a short sentence, or I'm looking at them addressing the opposition. And then in your actual annotation, the stuff you're going to put there is why did the author use it here, and if you thought that it was effective. Like, was this a good spot to isolate a sentence, or does repetition work well here, or does it not really work here? So you're going to be commenting on those different strategies that you're seeing. So this is what it'll look like. I'll use the same essay that we've been looking at as the example. I'm looking at the part where he put the sentence, wow. And what it will look like on yours is essentially that'll be highlighted, and I'll be linking to a larger box that shows what's going on. So I said that this is a short sentence, and the author makes the word wow its own sentence right there. I'm kind of just identifying. Now here's my thoughts. He's trying to show how strong Glavin's offer of giving $10,000 a month would be, and that it would be hard to pass up. I think giving us a moment to stop and think about this is an effective strategy to use here. So I like this idea. He's trying to make us say like $10,000 a month. When we read that word wow, we probably want to stop and do that math and say, oh, that's $120,000 a year. That's kind of a big job. And then follows it up with some other kind of short sentences, not as short as the previous one, but I think that this kind of fits here, so it's a good strategy. So this is what an annotation should look like. So here's how you do it. First, you're going to open up that Microsoft Word document with the article, whichever one that you've chosen from the course page. And then you're going to click on the top of the Word document where it says review, and you can see the arrow pointing right there. That should be on the top bar of the Word document you're looking at. And then you're going to pick the spot that you want to annotate, comment on, and highlight it. So if it's one word, if it's a whole sentence, I don't have a demonstration for that. Hopefully you guys know how to move to a specific word or spot. And then you're going to click the new comment box, and you can see it right where that top red arrow is. When you click that, you're going to see, so whatever part you had highlighted is going to make a line over to a box that opens up, and then that box is going to be where you comment in. And then you're going to put your comment there. I wrote, this is my annotation. You'll write what your actual annotation is. And then that's it. You have an annotation. It is there. You'll go through, you'll repeat this 10 times, and then you'll have it for the entire article. So one thing to keep in mind, when you are done, you need to save this before you upload it. If you upload it without saving it, it won't give me the one that you actually made annotations on. So again, for today's assignment, you're going to choose one of those articles, annotate it 10 times looking at those strategies, and then write a paragraph saying, did it work? Did they do a good job making this argument based on the strategies? And then you'll upload it into today's assignment. And then we'll all be experts on argument.